Hi there, Champion Trader Kevin Davey here, and today I want to talk to you about entry biases. So let's get started. Before we get started, if you're not on my free email list for algo trading information, well, you should be. Just hit the QR code, type in the address you see on the screen, and you'll get signed up and you'll get this free mini S&P algo strategy. So what do I mean by entry biases? Well, first, you have to realize that entries are only part of the trading puzzle. You know, you have entries, you have exits, you have money management, position sizing, psychology, diversification. There's a whole bunch of things that enter into good trading, and entries are only a part of it. The problem is a lot of people are biased either with their entries themselves or with the whole idea of entries. Let's face it, most people spend most of their time working on entries. And while I'll agree entries are important, they're only one piece of it. So remember that as you develop your strategies. You want to focus on entries only to a point, but don't forget about all these other pieces of the puzzle. So let's talk about entries and the biases. A lot of people think that you can have a perfect entry and one that's always going to time the market. You see these a lot in indicators that are for sale out there, where somebody will say, well, this indicator works on every market, every bar size. It is perfect. It gets the timing down just right. Yeah. I've seen them, you've seen them, and they're usually garbage. Or they'll work certain cases, and if somebody's trying to sell you something, they'll just show you the cases that work. But realize that no entry is perfect. And I want to share a good story about this, because this just shows how people are biased with the entries. So a few years ago, there was a professional trader. He's a commodity trading advisor, which if you don't know what that means, he actually manages accounts for other people. So he's a pro at it, and he gets a certain percentage of any profits he generates. But that's what he does for a living. So, he's not like a part-time person just diddling around. He's doing this for a living. So it was a few years ago that he shared with me what he said was his can't miss entry. Okay. And I think what he wanted me to do was to invest with him. And so he wanted to show me how great his entry was, how on top of the ball he was, and all that. So I took a look at it, and what he had done was he said it was great at predicting, and all it needed was the open and close price. It was super simple, and it's great. And here I have this spreadsheet I'll share with you that shows you how great it is. And boy, you look at that and you're like, hey, that looks really good. That's his little spreadsheet that he was using to back test. That should have been my first warning sign, is whenever somebody uses a spreadsheet to back test, you got to be a little leery of it, because it's easy to screw it up. But that's what he showed. And, I looked at it, and my first rule that I always live by is if it looks too good to be true, it usually is. Okay? And I applied that rule to this strategy, this spreadsheet, and I said, something's off here. It just looks a little too good to be true. And, my second rule, I kind of already mentioned that, is spreadsheets, hey, they are easy to screw up, easy to manipulate, and it doesn't have to be intentional. It could just be, hey, I put the equation in the wrong row, or I was referencing future data and that kind of thing. And that's what happened with this person. He was actually referencing tomorrow's open price to figure out what he should do today. So it was kind of biased, obviously, because he was using data he didn't know existed to make his decisions to buy or sell. Well, if you like what you see so far, you're going to love my free algo strategy and more trading information. Just hit the QR code or type in the address you see, and you'll get signed up to my email list and get lots of free algo trading information. And when I fixed his spreadsheet, this is what it looked like results wise. And you can see now, yeah, okay, now it looks reasonable. I mean, it's losing money, it's not any good, but it's a lot different than what he had shown. And the point here is that too good to be true definitely held up, and also the spreadsheet rule of, hey, you got to check these things and make sure they're right. So I showed this to that person, shared it, and said, hey, you know, there was a mistake in your spreadsheet. I fixed it for you. This is what it looks like. And, you know, I really didn't know what his response would be. I figured it might be like, oh, well, hey, thanks for finding out. I didn't expect what he came back with, which is he said, well, it doesn't matter what the spreadsheet said. This is still a great entry. I'm like, well, but the data says it isn't. But he was convinced that this was still a great entry. He was so biased and probably so attached to his perfect entry that he couldn't see the truth that was in front of him. And the truth was in my spreadsheet. He actually agreed that what I had fixed was right, but he still thought his entry was great. So that brings me to rule number 3 with entries. You've got to test it, and you've got to let the data make the decision for you. It knows the truth, right? The data doesn't lie when you do it right. So let the data speak. And in this case, the data was saying, hey, this entry, not as good as you'd think. Yet, this person was so biased with his entry that he ignored the data. He ignored the result. So you got to watch out for that. One way to eliminate those kind of biases is to have a process that you always follow when you develop your strategies. I use a unique process. I call it the Strategy Factory, and it takes you from goals and objectives to a tradable strategy. So visit my website, watch my other YouTube videos if you want to learn more about my process, but watch out for biases with entries because they will get you into trouble. I'm Kevin Davey. Have a great day.